how like fast-paced life is in America. In Europe, it was definitely a lot more slow-paced, and there was a lot more time to rest, especially at the weekend. Whereas in America, it's like you're either studying or you're doing some like crazy activity, like, I don't know, learning to play music or going to the gym, going out with your friends. There's never really like time for rest, and it took me a lot of time to get adjusted to that. But now after half a year, I definitely kind of like the fast-paced life, and I feel like America as a country really accommodates to it with the fast service in shops and fast food. And one thing that's been like pretty funny coming to Rice is how much people love my accent. So like every day people try to imitate my accent, or they ask me where I'm from, and a lot of people just like really like it. And actually, the first day that I met one of my closest friends at Rice, she invited me to her house for Thanksgiving, and I think my accent definitely had a role in that. She was like, "Oh my god, are you from England?" And she was just really excited about my accent. So I actually got to spend the Thanksgiving break in Arizona, which was insane. I stayed in Phoenix, and I got to visit Arizona State University, and we went out, and I got to see how an American family really lives, which was definitely an interesting experience. And one thing I'm very grateful for at Rice is that I have an amazing job, and it's honestly one of the most fun jobs I've ever had. So I'm a manager at the student center, and this basically means I pick up phone calls from anyone who calls Rice, or I welcome visitors, I show them around the student center if they need help finding something. I also tell people where like the food spots are around campus and things like that. So I actually really like this job, and I was kind of worried about whether I'd be like eligible to work coming to Rice with an F1 visa, but the OISS gives you loads of information about it, and they help you to get an SSN number and tell you information about taxes, so everything is super possible.
The first time I shared a meal with my international friends after I got to Houston, I just learned how different we are in our eating styles. Like while I was comfortably eating the Asian spice, my friends were sweating with their face all red. So it just struck me there, like how different we've been all our life. Also, I honestly had quite a challenging time adjusting to the food we have at Rice. But in my survey, which is the NOT survey connected to my residential college, 4 days a week we have Asian food, which makes me really happy. And we have many other options in different surveys across campus, so you will always find something that appeals to you no matter what. Also, another major difference between my home country and here in the US is back home I've never used a card, and I grew up using cash all my life, but here I just stopped using cash because cards are a lot more convenient and I don't have to carry around my wallet all the time. I can just bring my phone and my card around and I'm all set.
One thing that I kept doing at Rice was baking. I love baking at home, and even though I was at university living in a dorm, there's kitchens in all the residential colleges, so I kept baking my favorite Australian things like cheesy mite scrolls, which are Vegemite and cheese wrapped up in a savory cinnamon-like scroll. So I was sharing my favorite Australian snacks with my friends, even if I was however many miles away. One thing that I would recommend is having a regular time to speak to your family, especially if it's tricky with organizing different time zones. Having a regular time each week that you've set aside that you know both of you guys are going to be free makes it a lot easier than chasing each other down and trying to call each other back. A lot of people, when I tell them I'm from Australia, they're kind of surprised. They're like, "Oh, you don't have an Australian accent?" My background is kind of all over the place because my mom's French and American, my dad's Australian, so it was a little bit hard being like, yes, I'm Australian, no, I don't have the accent, I'm still Australian, but I'm kind of from all over the place. I don't feel fully Australian or fully one culture, so that was a little bit hard, feeling like I'm put in a box as an Australian person, having to be like the Australian, knowing all the Australian stereotypes and knowing the Australian slang. Everybody wants to know Australian slang. But I'm not just an Australian, I'm so many other things. So that was a little bit hard coming to Rice when there's kind of one person from each country. Having to feel like you fit that mold is something that's a bit challenging. I think generally people are pretty excited to learn about where you're from as an international student and just learn about your culture. I think everyone comes to Rice with different backgrounds and they're just excited to learn about people who come from different parts of the world. So for me, coming from Australia, the number one questions are like, is Vegemite good? Are there scary spiders? That's pretty much it. And it's fun to share my experience with Australia and then just learn about their cultures and where they're from. Even if they're from like the US or Texas, they bring so many different experiences and backgrounds, which I'm excited to learn from as well. So, yeah.
Another thing that struck me when I came to Rice was how friendly people are. I mean, they are very welcoming. It's very common to hear people ask you how you slept, how was your day. The college magistrates, the professors, and all the other employees and students are very, very friendly. They usually talk to you very well, and I think that makes a foreigner feel like home, like a region. Yeah. So the education system here is pretty different from the Kenyan system, because in Kenyan universities you don't have the ability to choose which classes you want to take. So after high school, you are invited to take, let's say, a bachelor's degree in bioengineering. That's what you have to take. You can't choose any other classes. So choosing classes is none of Kenyan students' worries. But right here it was very different because you choose the classes you want to take, and most of the classes were pretty new to me. So I found myself very confused, but thanks to the advisors, I was able to choose classes. Okay. One of the major differences between Houston and Kenya, Nakuru, where I come from, is the transport system. In Kenya, it's very simple. You just walk to a stage, you board a matatu, and you reach your destination. But right here, it's complicated. You must use a card or something. But it's thanks to Rice University for facilitating that, because we have the Metro cards, which are very helpful. Especially in my very first days, I found myself using Uber every other time, and that was pretty expensive. But right now, I feel like I'm accustomed to the transport system, and yeah, I can move around using the public transport, and it feels nice.